Thank y'all so much for being here this morning. I'm just honored to have Josh's support. I also want to thank his service to our country. I know we have a lot of other veterans here and people that have served us, and people that have served us too, not to leave out folks that are involved in public safety, first responders like my friend Michael McNeely and many others in the room. So thank you guys as well for what you do to keep our families safe every day. I want to also thank Councilman Paul Otto for his strong and early support for my campaign. We got just so many local elected officials that are supporting us literally from all over the state. It's very humbling, and I really appreciate that. And Josh, I think my daughters and my wife felt the same way you did this morning about leaving the lake, except they were leaving Athens at 6:30, and the girls always say, Dad, it is not normal for a teenager to be leaving the house on Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. But I'm always glad to have the Kemp team strong women with me today. My wife Marty, our middle daughter Lucy, and our youngest daughter Amy Porter. Jarrett couldn't come with us this morning. But great to be back in Fayette County. Appreciate you guys being involved so much in the party. I continue to know and believe that this is the home of the best GOP breakfast in the state. So thank you all for a great breakfast. And just appreciate your willingness to show up and fight. And look, I think, we're in the runoff. People know the issues, they know the candidates, they know where people are. And so I'm just going to talk about really the state of the race this morning and mention a few things. And I won't be, like Michael, I won't let the music start playing on me. But I got in this race over 15 months ago because I'm just like you are. I'm a father to 3 teenage daughters. Marty and I both grew up in Athens. We've known each other pretty much our whole life. She was one of my sister's best friends, even though we didn't start dating until long after both of us had gotten out of college. But we've been there our whole lives, so it's our home. It's where we raised our children. It's where I started, work the day after I walked out of my last exam at the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. And I did that for 6 or 7 years. I've been working with these guys when I was in school. I started my first company in '93 with literally a pickup truck and a shovel. And I've been doing that for over 30 straight years, every single day. And every single day I've ever served in elected office, I've been a small business person. I've been having to make payroll, I've been having to pay bills, deal with insurance, taxes, government regulations, and so on. And that is what drove me to public service. I've told most of you before, either the state convention or here, Athens is the blue dot in the Red Sea. Only county in the state that voted for Michael Dukakis for president. And we just elected a Bernie Sanders type socialist to our county commission. And speaking of that, I did want to welcome the George Soros funded tracker that we have here, so don't be fooled, folks, in the green shirt in the back. He's going around trying to get us with a sound bite. I'm sure they're doing that to the Cagle campaign as well, so I just wanted to make sure that we welcomed him this morning. But I finally got so fed up as a father and a small business guy that I decided to do something about it. And I ran against a liberal Democrat for a state Senate seat that nobody thought I could win, and I beat him and went to the legislature, and I worked hard to do exactly what I told people I would do. Cut regulations, cut taxes, and have a common sense person in state government that was making good decisions and would listen to people. Served 2 terms, went home for 3 years, focused on some business stuff, focused on helping Marty raise the girls, and then decided to run for Secretary of State. And make a long story short, when I was at home, I was frustrated like you were when we had George Bush in the White House and both parties of Congress, and we kept growing the deficit, and we kept doing things that were not what we were they were telling people at breakfasts like this. And I told myself, if I ever run for office again, I'm going to tell people what I'm going to do And when I get in there, that is exactly what I'm going to do, because I think that's what people were looking for. It's one reason people stayed home in '08, because they weren't excited about a great American, John McCain, as our nominee. And we got Barack Obama as president. And so when I ran, I told people that I was going to use technology and my small business owner's mentality and private sector experiences to make the Secretary of State's office streamlined and more efficient. And we have done that through all parts of the agency. New voter registration system that does more work. We privatize part of it, serving the county registrars better, and has saved you, the taxpayers, millions of dollars. Probably never heard about that because the press doesn't want to write about good stories. Revamped our corporation site over 3 years ago. We're having record years every single year. Best system in the country, and we continue to make it better. We've redone all of our IT hardware in Macon, so we're providing better service, licensing people quicker, call center hold times and wait times are down, our abandonment rates are down, bringing that private sector mentality and overhauling the office top to bottom. And that's what I said I would do. That's what Republicans are supposed to do. Cutting our budget at one point 25%, we had almost 30% less people, and we kept up our workload. And that's hard to do, but we had to do it during the recession to keep from raising taxes. And that's what I will do as your governor. I also have been transparent. You know, first couple of months I was in office, we put our budget up on our website so you, the taxpayers, could see it and hold me accountable. And soon after that, we start putting our expenses up there. So you see every single dollar that we're spending in the Secretary of State's office and what we're spending it on. Holds us accountable. We're doing line item, zero-based budgeting. We've been doing that for over 8 years now. So little things like that that you don't really ever know about of me doing what I said I would do. We've done the same thing when it comes to fighting for our values, for our causes, and the things that we believe in and that we ran on, like securing elections and making them more accessible. You know, the left and Stacey Abrams have criticized me for being a voter registration suppressor of all things, even though there's 800,000 more people on our rolls now than when I took office. I created, got passed, and implemented an online voter registration system in Georgia where now you can register to vote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on your phone. You don't even have to talk to anybody at our office or your county registrar's office to register to vote in the state now. We created a student ambassadors program. We got 150 schools, over 1,500 kids that are promoting voter registration in their schools all over the state. Public, private, homeschool groups, chamber-backed groups, great program. Teaching them about government, civics, they're volunteering. We have a contest, so they're awarded points on different projects they're doing. The number of 17.5 and 18-year-olds that have registered to vote in the last 3 years has doubled because of that program. So real results. But I've also been fighting for our values. As Josh said, suing the Obama Justice Department twice to implement our citizenship check. I had fought the New Georgia Project, which is Stacey Abrams' group, that basically said I was targeting them when we were getting complaints from local elected officials and their citizens saying New Georgia Project canvassers are forging our signature on voter registration forms. Well, I don't know about y'all, but if I get that complaint in our law enforcement division, we are going to investigate it. And it's not targeting, by the way. 52 counts of felonies the state election board found worthy, and we sent to the Attorney General's office for prosecution. That is what I told you I would do, and that is what I have done. I've stood up to them when they've sued over election results, when President Trump got elected and when Karen Handel got elected. You know, the Democrats are great at complaining and blaming everybody else when they lose. Does Hillary Clinton ring a bell? But just know that I have been there on the front lines many times by myself, fighting the good fight, because I told you I would. And that's important when you're figuring out who you're going to vote for in the governor's race. You know, who do you trust? And I have been saying this for over 15 months now. Who do you trust to do the right thing when no one's watching? Who has that record of doing what they say they're going to do? And if you look at mine, that's exactly what I've done. And I would urge you that my opponent in the runoff is the one that was begging everybody in the race not to get dirty. Let's run a clean campaign based on the issues. I was the only one that did that through the primary, and he hit everybody else. So I hope you would take this mudslinging that's going on now with a grain of salt and really look past that and look at the candidates and look at the record and support who you think will do the right thing when no one's watching. And who do you trust to fight for you up there? And I believe if you look at my record, you'll want to give me a serious choice of voting for me. And I would be honored by that. Because I have a very simple 4-point plan. Make Georgia #1 for small business, building off what Governor Deal's done to make us #1 for business 5 years in a row with the support of people like Josh and others in the legislature. And our office has been right along helping everywhere we could to put us in that position. But I know that we need to do more, and we can do it by cutting government regulations, easing the burden on small business people, just like we've done in the Secretary of State's office, streamlining and so on. And we'll do that on day one. The second thing is we got to make sure that we reform how state government spends, taxes, and operates. We need to implement a spending cap. Everybody in the race was talking about tax reform when we started. Casey was talking about a $100 million tax cut first 90 days, and you had Hill and Williams and others saying we need to do away with the state income tax. Well, I'm for any and all of it. But the thing is, it hadn't been done until this year, and the reason it got done this year is because we can thank our president, Donald J. Trump, and our Republican congressman for getting a tax cut done that created a windfall in Georgia that we offset this year. And I appreciate the legislature and the governor doing that, but let's thank the appropriate people. But that's why I say let's start with a spending cap. So we keep spending in check or reduce it when times are good like we're in now, because it's not going to be like this forever, y'all. You know it's going to cycle back through. I've seen it in my private sector experience, and it's going to happen again, and we got to be ready for it. And we need to fund the things that we properly need to fund in state government, like public safety, transportation, infrastructure, education, health care, but then other things that we don't need to be doing or they're not performing, or tax breaks we're giving away that aren't having success or doing what they're supposed to do, let's rein those in. And then let's lower the state income tax, or let's do the fair tax, or let's do broad-based, tax reform where we increase the exemptions for all Georgia families. I'll do any kind of tax reform after we've reduced and cut spending that helps everybody, that's broad-based, not for the special interest. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of the special interest tax breaks. We need to have a governor that's going to ask how much is it going to cost and who's going to pay for it and what is the benefit to the state and the taxpayer. If it's viable, I'll absolutely look at it. If it's not, then we don't need to do it. We also got to make sure that no matter what your zip code, you've got the same opportunities in Georgia as anybody else. Access to high-speed internet, good quality health care, good education, good infrastructure, roads and transportation. And then you also got to have access to good economic opportunity. I've been to all 159 counties in our state, the only candidate running for governor that's done that. We work with every single one of them in the Secretary of State's office, so I've seen it. I've seen the despair when people's kids can't get on the internet at their house to do their homework. I've seen where people have to call and have somebody meet them at the little local doctor's office or hospital. And I've also seen that populations are dropping, the county governments are having a hard time, the cities are. People are literally drying up around the state. But I've also seen the opportunity, because I know it from the private sector. I've been involved in manufacturing in rural counties, one of the poorest counties in the state like Turner County. I'm involved in agriculture, farming, so I understand the opportunities that are there. And that's why I was the first candidate, probably over 6 months ago, I guess now, that introduced a detailed plan to strengthen rural Georgia that talks about all of those things. I would encourage you to look at that as many is along with our other plans that we have, more detail, I think, than anybody else in the governor's race on adoption reform, traffic solutions, education, and so on. The fourth thing, though, is the most important, and is why I'm running. We need a governor that will put you first ahead of the special interest, the status quo, and the politically correct, and those that are here illegally. And that is exactly why I got in this race, because we need a governor that will keep our families safe. I worry about that as a teenage daughter. It's every week you read a story about 14 and 15-year-old kids and up shooting people, gang-related, opioid epidemic, sex trafficking, drugs. B.J. Pack, the new U.S. attorney that Donald Trump appointed, said the other day at a public meeting, Georgia has become a distribution hub for the Mexican drug cartel. The state of Georgia, and nobody's really talking about that. Over 8 years ago, the legislature created the street gang database. It's never been funded. And we have become a haven to street gangs in our state. I work with District Attorney Vic Reynolds in Cobb County, one of my best supporters, and endorsed me early on to develop the Stop and Dismantle Street Gang Plan. I hope you'll take a look at that, as well as our track and deport criminal illegals in our state. Working with President Trump, tearing down the silos of communication with the database where we know where these crimes are happening. We know who these people are. They got multiple aliases, so we can track them, get them, and immediately deport them. You can't even tell what the number is of how many criminal illegals we have in our penal system right now and what it's costing us and you, the taxpayer. So that is about putting you first. In every decision I make, I will promise you, if you support me to be the nominee and then we'll defeat Stacey Abrams, I'm confident of that, I will make those decisions on treating you and putting you first ahead of the special interest. And with that, I'd love to ask for your vote and for your support in this runoff. We have got the momentum in this race. We got to keep it for another 2.5 weeks or whatever it is. We are working night and day to do that. We've had a big surge to primary day, and we've been surging ever since, and we're going to continue to do that. And I ask that you would join us. Thank you so much.